How do you set goals and achieve them? This is a really great topic for discussion when we talk about coming from a background of complex trauma, because setting goals and achieving them may seemingly come easy to other people in the world. But for some of us, setting goals and achieving them can be quite challenging. There's an illustration. It's of an experiment that was done on dogs, and it's questionable how ethical this experiment was. But essentially, the scientists took these dogs and they would shock the dogs every time they rang a bell. And so they would ring a bell and then shock the dogs, ring the bell, then shock the dogs. And the dogs would start to become frightened even when they just heard the bell ringing. After a while, the scientists noticed they could just ring the bell and the dogs would respond as if they had been shocked, even though they had not been shocked. Just the sound of the bell made the dogs frightened. Now, they took this experiment to the next level, and they took those same dogs who were now frightened of being shocked and had been shocked every time a bell rang. And they took the dogs and they put them in a cage that was split down the middle. And there was a small little barrier, like a little fence that they could see through. They could jump over the fence. On one side of the fence, they made the floor electrically charged, so the floor would shock them. And on the other side of the fence, the floor was not charged, so the floor would not shock the dogs. What they were surprised to see is that those dogs who were previously shocked in the first experiment, they could see over the fence to the non-shocking side. They could jump over the fence, but when the scientists turned on the shock, the dogs would get shocked and they would just lay down right there on the shocking side of the fence. They would not attempt to move. They would not attempt to change their situation. They would get sad and they would lay right there. This is an illustration of learned helplessness. Although the dogs have the ability to change their situation, they didn't try. Why? Because they had learned from that previous experiment that there was nothing they could do. They were going to get shocked. That experiment was abusive to those dogs, just shocking those dogs for no reason. They hadn't done anything wrong, but they were getting these electrical shocks, and that's what they learned. They learned no matter what I do, I don't have to be doing anything wrong. I will be shocked. And so when the time came that they actually had the ability to alleviate their own suffering, they didn't take that option. They didn't exercise that power or that ability. They just sat right there, right in the negative circumstance, and didn't try to change anything. But then when the scientists brought in a new batch of dogs who had never been shocked, and those dogs felt the shock from that floor, they jumped over to the other side without a hesitation. That's learned helplessness. Those poor dogs who have been abused, who have been shocked for no reason, they didn't take the option that was available to them. We see that same mentality play out in trauma survivors who grow up with abusive or neglectful parents, including verbal abuse, emotional neglect. They will stay in the household even beyond 18 when the door is open, and all there is a small fence that they could just jump over. They will stay in the house after 19. They will stay in the house after 20. They may move out because their parents controlled them into getting married to someone, or they were so trying to get out of the house that they went and got married to someone, and then that marriage fails. And then what do? They move back in the house with the same abusive, narcissistic, neglectful parents. Why? Well, they'll say, I have no other choice. I have no other option. But what we see playing out is learned helplessness, because it doesn't occur to the trauma survivor that you, having narcissistic, abusive, egopathic, neglectful parents, do not have the option of moving back with your parents. That is the thing that you don't have. And there's no sense for us to focus on what we don't have, because all of us don't have something. Some people are tall and some people are short. Short people should not focus on how they are not tall, and tall people should not focus on how they are not short. They should simply recognize that they are all flowers in the garden, right? And the variety is a good thing. So some people will have certain advantages in life. Those tall people, they're Duncan, right? They're able to do all types of athletics and things that there's just advantages. They're reaching stuff on high shelves, right? But they have their issues. They don't fit on beds properly. Everything's always too small for them. They don't fit in cars properly. Meanwhile, the short people fit everywhere, right? So they have their own advantages. They may be very fast, very quick, and their small hands or small arms are great for being able to get in between those crevices, like in your car where you always drop something in that little nether region there. Those short people are able to reach inside there because they have small appendages. Everyone has their advantages, but everyone has things they don't have. For you, if you grew up with narcissistic, abusive, neglectful parents, you don't have someone that you can go move back home with. You don't have someone that you can rely on. You don't have that option. It's not to be sad about it. You just don't have that. Some people don't have parents that they can rely on. You may be one of those people. Recognize that and don't fall into learned helplessness and think, well, since my circumstances are good, I'll go move back with my parents. Everyone else does that. Everyone else has their parents they can rely on. No, but you don't. Those same rules don't apply to you. And when you're in that situation, you are living at home and you realize, oh, whoops, this probably wasn't the best mental health decision. It's time to leave. So you recognize, okay, man, these parents are abusive. They are neglectful. They're tearing me down. So what do I need to do? Well, you can actually walk over to the door. You turn those locks, you turn that doorknob, and you walk right out of that front door. Those shoes on your feet are made for walking. But we don't think like that when we come from trauma because we have that learned helplessness. Because in childhood, like those dogs in the experiment, we learned that there was nothing we could do to end our negative circumstances or to alleviate our own suffering. We learned there was nothing we could do in childhood. So that now that there is an option, there's a short fence that we could just jump over, we don't think to do it because subconsciously we don't believe that anything will end our suffering. We feel like no matter what move I make, it's going to be scary. And even thinking about this is too scary, it's too stressful. So just forget it. I'll just stay right here and just keep getting shocked. So if you thought the experiment about what happened to the dogs was sad, look at what's happening to you right now. Don't worry. There's hope. Our ability to set goals and to achieve them is a fundamental exercise of our personal power. People who are in positions of authority often will abuse their position by trying to convince their subordinates that they are powerless to them. This requires some lying and deceit, because in reality, human beings are not powerless to other people who are also human beings in positions of authority. But in order to be controlled, they have to believe oftentimes that they are powerless. And so people who are in those positions of authority will use fear and manipulation to keep people small, so to speak, and to keep people from rising up and to keep people from being creative and thinking for themselves and stepping into their personal power and walking out of the door, walking away or running away. So they want their captives to believe that they are helpless without their captors. Your parents may have embarked on a similar campaign with you for a solid 18 years through your entire childhood, through your developmental years. And so all of the drama and trauma that you grew up around stunts your growth, specifically your confidence in your ability to take care of yourself, to provide for yourself. All of the psychological trauma that you're going through in your household. You might have parents who are constantly fighting and arguing, or they're constantly fighting and arguing with the kids. They may have been putting the children down. All of those things can cause a child to feel like things will never change, because in the household you grew up in, year after year, it didn't change. And you may have tried things as a child that were childish, such as running away as a child, or doing drugs as a child, or trying alcohol as a child, or relationships that were unhealthy. And you may have found that those things didn't help. And so you got the program in your mind, there's nothing I can do. But going through your life with programs that say there's nothing I can do is the most dangerous thing you can do. Because for you to not know what your personal power is, for you to not be in touch with your own ability to set goals and to achieve them, that in itself traps you. So now when the door is open, so to speak, when you are over 18 and you can walk out of that house, or you can go and get the job of your dreams, or you can go and get your education, or you can go and do whatever it was or whatever it is that you're afraid to accomplish, but you know you should do and you want to do, you can't do it because in your mind you believe you can't do it. You believe there would be no use, and you believe there is no hope as a result. Perhaps you know people who are feeling this way, who feel trapped. And so often trauma survivors end up going back and living with their abusive, narcissistic, neglectful parents. But what should you do? Whether you're back living at home, or you're on your own, or you're looking for a job, or you have the job, or you have the career, but you really want to transition into a better career, you want to start your own business, what should you do if you have desires, or if you would like to just get off of the shocking floor? What should you do? Well, you can set goals for yourself. You'll find as a survivor, setting goals for yourself and achieving those goals is better than positive thinking. It will allow you to access your own personal power, and you'll start to believe in yourself. And it's a compounding effect, right? So you set and achieve a goal, you achieve the goal, and you start to say, wow, that really worked well. Maybe I could do that again. That thought is now a positive program. That program will actually lead to positive results in your life. It's a helpful program. The thought of, hey, maybe I could do it, instead of there's probably no use. The old childhood program. There's nothing I can do to stop the shocking. So just that thought, maybe I could do it, it's a shift in your perspective. And it's true, isn't it? I mean, isn't it true that maybe you could do it? Maybe you could be successful. Maybe you could achieve some of your goals. So shift your perspective to a maybe I could do it. And then as you achieve more goals, it compounds itself even more. And your perspective starts to shift. And you say, well, based on the past, I definitely can do whatever I set my mind to, because look at what I've accomplished thus far. Even as a trauma survivor, and as someone who may feel they haven't achieved all of their goals in the past, or maybe you feel like you haven't achieved anything, all of that is really a perception, because in reality, we've all achieved something. So instead of looking back at your past and affirming your negative, unhelpful bias, create a new bias and look back in your past for what will affirm the new, more helpful bias. Again, instead of looking back and saying, I haven't achieved anything. I never got my master's degree. I never went for my dream job. I never moved out of my hometown. All of that is just confirming a bias. And you have a negativity bias. You have a bias that there's nothing you can do. There is no hope. You will not accomplish anything. You just have to rely on your abusive parents. That's your only hope. You have to just stay on the shocking floor. But if you change your perspective, then you'll find, if you change your bias, you'll find confirmation for that bias when you look into your past. So if you change the bias to, I have the ability to achieve, I can achieve my goals, then you look back in the past and what do you find back there? You might start finding examples of times that you achieved something, because you have. After all, you learned to walk, didn't you? You learned to read, didn't you? Some of you weren't native English speakers and then learned to speak English, or some of you are native English speakers and learned to speak another language. You graduated from middle school and then high school, didn't you? You may have even gotten a associate's degree, or you may have gotten your bachelor's degree, didn't you? You got a job in the first place, even if you've lost that job now, but you had one. If you still have your job, you've kept a job. Look at what you've done. Look at what you've accomplished. You are accomplishing things every week. When you get a paycheck, that is an accomplishment. And you will find there is plenty of evidence to confirm your bias, no matter what your bias is. So why not choose a bias that's helpful? Why not choose a bias that's positive, that will lead us to finding confirmations that move us forward in life? So in setting goals, there are different types of goals that we're going to want to set. So what type of goals do you need to set? A person who does not have to heal from trauma has a little easier, right? They only have to set personal goals, right? So there's just, okay, I would like to get that new job. I would like to get a house. I would like to improve my credit. I would like to get a car. They have just personal goals like that. But we have those goals too. So write down for yourself a few personal goals. You don't need more than 3, and 1 is enough, but you do need 1 or more, and you need 3 or less. Okay, so there's your parameters for how many personal goals you need to write down. So go ahead and jot those down on your page. Those are your personal goals. And you can set another category, because as a survivor, we also need overcoming fear goals, and we also need learning new things goals. Why is that? Well, we were controlled by fear. Fear has limited us and kept us back as survivors. And so you will need to set overcoming fear goals, which is de-triggering goals, which means that you will literally take a trigger, something in your life that holds you back, and you will actually set the goal to defuse that trigger. Now, how do you do that? How do you defuse a trigger? By simply exposing yourself to the trigger. But you can do it gradually, slowly, in a controlled environment. But you have to use your triggers. What we tend to do as survivors with the triggers is, oh God, it's a trigger. No, 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 no. Cover my eyes, cover my ears. That will protect me. That triggers me. So I have to protect myself by making sure that I don't see the trigger, I don't hear the trigger. But that doesn't protect you in the long run, does it? It might help you to avoid getting hurt in the short term, feeling a little bit of pain right now. But in the long term, you box yourself in more and more. Oh, I can't go to the left. There's triggers over there. Oh, I can't go to the right either. There's triggers over there. I can't look up. There's triggers, right? It just boxes you until you are stuck living in a small, confined environment, such as your old bedroom at your parents' house. Physically, or not literally, just psychologically, you can just be confining yourself. So we can't live our life that way, avoiding triggers. It doesn't work that way. So what does work? Set fear goals, overcoming fear goals. Find the triggers. So write down 1 to 3 things that scare the crap out of you, that you don't want to do. If you have a trigger around school because you were bullied, okay, put schooling, taking a class, that's going to be a fear goal for you. If you have fears around driving a car because there was an accident, put that down. That's going to be a fear goal for you, driving a car. If you have fears around cooking because you got hurt one time, or your mom would beat you with pans when you would try to cook, set that down as a goal. Cooking, you have to expose yourself to it. So you're going to go into the kitchen, you're going to pull out the pots and pans, you're going to start with something simple like boiling some water. You're going to allow the anxiety to move through your body as that water is boiling, and then when it passes, turn off the stove, you up the ante, put some spaghetti in that water, turn the water back on, and you just keep increasing the intensity of your exposure to that trigger until eventually you're able to cook without being triggered, or you're able to ride in a car without being triggered, or you're able to drive, or you're able to. So you expose yourself to these things in life that would otherwise be benign or helpful, like cooking, moving, driving, working, schooling. You expose yourself to them, because holding yourself away from them due to them being a trigger is going to flatline your life. It's going to limit you. We don't want that. It's time for us to get off of the shocking floor. So you're going to want to set your fear goals. What other types of goals do we need to set for ourselves? So we have our personal goals, we got our fear goals, then we need our learning new things goals. Our learning new things goals. Why is that important? Because you grew up in a traumatic environment where you didn't learn a lot of things that other people seem to learn. There was no time for you to learn new things. Number one, you're not in a mind frame to learn new things when you're trying to survive, right? That's anyone. If I'm trying to survive, if I'm trying to dodge traffic, it's not the time to be like, hey, would you like to learn how to do day trading? Not now. I'm dodging traffic. This is a survival situation. If I'm on the side of a mountain and I'm scaling that mountain, that's not the time to come up and be like, hey, you should really learn how to do Facebook advertising. Don't talk to me right now. I'm trying to survive. That was you in your adolescence and your childhood, which is too bad because your adolescence and your childhood is when you're supposed to be learning how to do new things. And so you get into adulthood and you're looking around like, why is everybody so proficient at everything? It's because they weren't trying to survive. It's because they grew up in households with parents that were speaking like calmly to one another. It was amazing. It would have been a paradise for you. You're not inferior to them. You didn't have the opportunity they had. So it's not to look back and regret that. Now we just have to recognize where we are and we got to set learning new things goals. That's all. So what are some things that you notice or you feel like secretly you should know by now, but everyone else seems to know? Maybe it's learning how to cook. Some of you grew up in a traumatic environment and you didn't learn how to cook as a result. You just couldn't. Don't feel any shame about it. Set it down as a goal, learning to cook. Then what do? You can go right up on YouTube and you can start looking up videos and figuring out how to cook. Or maybe you feel like you don't know how to clean well because of the household you grew up in. What are your basic learning new things goals? Some things that you need to learn, especially as a result of your trauma that you feel stunted in, that everyone else seems to know about, that you feel like you don't know about. Hygiene, healthy relationships, maintaining relationships, purchasing things, buying a car, buying a house, personal grooming, how to do your hair, right? What do you feel like you didn't learn? Don't spend time lamenting that you didn't have it. Don't say, oh, I never learned this, so oh well. That's that same old mindset that holds you back. I never learned that, so I won't do it. Right? Everyone says, hey, come to our party. We're going to be, doing, it's like an art party. We're going to be painting pictures. Oh, I never learned how to paint. I'm not going to go. No, you go, and that's how you learn. You have to go. So now is your opportunity to write down 1 to 3 things that are your learning goals, your learning new things goals. It's going to help to break you out of the effects of your complex trauma, the difficult situation that you grew up in. So isn't this nice? Now you got your personal goals, you got your learning new things goals, and you got your fear-based goals. This is awesome. So now how do we start achieving these goals? Like, what's the process here, right? So what I like to do is write my goals down, but not just in a book. You can have a copy in your book, but I don't like it inside the book because books have covers and then you can't see your goals. So we got to get it out of the book. You can have it in there, but we need it somewhere else. Okay. So I like to just take one of these things, these dry erase markers, and I write on all the hard surfaces. So specifically, I use the mirrors, but I also got a grocery list on my refrigerator, and I got a mirror in the bathroom too. That's where I write down the goals, right? So I got in the bathroom, I got like long-term strategic goals and like notes and stuff for like theories on psychology and stuff like that. That's a whole nother thing. But right here, right at this desk, when I look across the room, I got a mirror. I got goals right there on the mirror. Those are my personal goals. And you can write your personal goals that are just for you, but put them somewhere you're going to see them. You're going to look at them. So if you're sharing the living space, so your mirrors are not safe, then what you want to do is you can use Post-it notes too, by the way, and put those up, or you can put it on your phone and use it as a save screen or something like that, right? You can get a dry erase board, but put your goals up where you're going to see them on a daily basis, okay? So in your dead time, what's happening is you're feeding the subconscious this constant reminder of where it is you're going, what you're supposed to be doing. Your goals are super important because the goals, who you're trying to become, is actually who you are. Who you're trying to become is who you actually are. You are who you intend to be. So many of us think we are who we were in the past. We are what people think of us, what people know us as. That's not who you are. Who you are is actually who you intend to be. It's all about where you're going. So get about those goals, because that's actually who you are. People will catch up because when you accomplish the goal, then they say, oh, that's the girl that graduated cosmetology class. Then they know who you are because you achieve those goals, right? But that's still not who you are, because who you actually are is your next goals. You're always who you're intending to be. As you intend to be a more patient person, then you are a more patient person. And people will start to say that about you, but you'll already be on to the next goal. Is this making sense? It's a constant cycle as you're living in the future. And so to that aim, your step 2 is your envisioning process. The envisioning process is by far the most important process, part of this whole setting and achieving goals. I've achieved my goal. I could just not write the goal down and just do the envisioning, and the goal is going to happen, because the envisioning part is so important. And this is the part that most people skip over. A lot of survivors just skip over the envisioning because they don't realize the incredible power of the mind. But what you envision, it comes to pass. It actually will happen. This is not because we're like beings of like we're not magic or something like that, but we're made as little creative beings, and we do have creative powers. We also have powers of deduction and observance, and we have the powers of personal choice, which is a huge power, our ability to make choices. And we're making hundreds of thousands of individual choices throughout the day, right? And so when you create a vision, when you envision your future, what you're doing is you're feeding your subconscious mind, the part that never sleeps, you're feeding it an objective. And the subconscious mind believes that that objective is reality, because the subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between something you're envisioning, like a daydream, something you actually dreamt about while you were sleeping, and something that's actually happening, or something on television. That's why when you watch a movie, you feel real emotions. Like, I feel like a spy when I'm watching a spy movie. Like, I really am into it. I'm just, hurry up, close the door. I hate when they run into the room. They're running away from the bad guys and they don't close and lock the door behind them. Have you ever noticed that in movies? I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I feel it. I'm like, because I'm in it. When I'm watching it, it's like it's actually happening. Subconsciously, it is. And the subconscious mind actually drops the chemicals into your system. So you're feeling all of that anxiety. Well, it works the same with your dreams. So envision right before you go to bed every night what that future is going to look like when you graduate cosmetology school and you're doing people's hair, you're doing their makeup. What is it going to be like when you're in school? What is it going to be like when you've graduated? Where are your goals? Where are you trying to be? Who are you trying to be? How do you look? Who are you with? What are you wearing? How is your hair look? What are you driving? What's in the bank account? Dream up the life every single night, 7 days a week. Fantasize, fantasize, fantasize. A helpful, positive, wholesome fantasy of where you want to be and what you want to be. It's the most important part of setting goals. And your body regulates the chemicals, gives you the serotonin, dopamine, everything. It's like you're already there. And so you wake up in the morning, and your step 3 of these steps for setting and achieving your goals is to lay a brick every day. You wake up in the morning and your main thought is, how do I lay another brick? How do I do one thing today that will bring me closer to that vision that I was envisioning last night? Because that was amazing. I love the way it felt. Just putting myself there, how I was, how I moved. That is me. That's what I want the world to see me as. That's what I want my legacy to be. So how can I lay a brick today? There's always something you can do every single day. There's something you can do. I don't care if the only thing you did was logged into your website and just moved some type font from the left side to the right side. There's always something you can do that's moving you closer towards your goals. Never let a day go by. 7 days a week. You don't get, you don't need a break from succeeding. 7 days a week, do something toward achieving your goals, becoming the person you want to be. Setting and achieving goals is stepping into your personal power. This is your existential crisis of feeling like you don't know who you are. It starts to end when you get serious about setting and achieving your goals. So far, what we've got is write it down somewhere you can see it. That's step number 1. Number 2, envision it. Step number 3, lay a brick every day. Just one small thing you can do. There's always something you can do to move this machine forward. And then your last step is to set more goals, because what's going to happen is you're going to achieve the old goals, and then you're going to need to set more goals. So don't forget step 4. When you achieve those old goals, you're going to have to set more goals. Now here's some very important tips. One thing I never do, ever, under any circumstances, is beat myself up for not achieving something. Don't need to do that. Don't worry about that. My goals are personal. I don't tell other people, I don't tell everyone, hey, this is my goals. Here's what I'm thinking I want to do. It's going to be great. I don't talk to people about my goals. Don't do that. You don't need their judgment. You don't need their opinion. You just do your goals. Just you. You can talk to a safe person like your coach or therapist, someone like that if you want, but you don't need to go around and tell everybody what you're doing. When you feel like you haven't met the goal, or you didn't meet a certain deadline that you had in mind, just say, still working on it. That's it. That's the emotional response to have. Don't beat yourself up. Don't punish yourself. Don't feel sad. Don't feel mad. Don't get upset. Like, literally, do not worry about it if you haven't achieved a goal on time. Never punish yourself. Punishments are done. Punishments are done. Punishments are for little children. Children are giving punishments by their parents because children don't have any real world consequences. That was the point of the punishments. Now that you're a grown up, you're in the real world. So you have real world consequences. You don't need extra punishments on that. So never, ever punish yourself, ever, for not achieving a goal. There's one thing you never do. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel bad. Just lay bricks. Envision, lay bricks. You can make adjustments to your goals anytime. Alter them, change the date. Just go up, change the date on your goal. Oh, I didn't get it by now. Here's the new date. That's fine. That's all you do. Just change the dates. Never beat yourself up. Feel no guilt for not achieving a goal on time. Just keep laying bricks. Second tip I'll give you is set your goals in a way that's reasonable. Give yourself plenty of time to achieve small goals, and you'll exceed your expectations sometimes, and it alleviates a lot of the extra anxiety. Don't go for perfection, and don't try to set high, lofty standards and goals. Everything's done just a little bit at a time. So just set small goals and achieve them intermittently, just a little bit every day. Get up and lay those bricks. As a result, you will have confirmation of a positive bias. I think I can. I think it's possible. And you will see that it is. And as you get that confirmation, is now your duty to use those confirmations, those past successes, as the impetus to continue moving forward. So those are your 4 steps to setting and achieving goals. Hopefully you'll be able to use those, and hopefully you found that helpful in your journey moving forward. I appreciate everyone taking the time to listen here to the 40 we had on TikTok, the 30 in our Zoom session. You guys all have a wonderful evening.